Following the Anthony Davis trade and obviously for Luka Doncic, one immediate need became clear for the Lakers, with that being at center. After trading AD, they were pretty much left with Jackson Hayes, and apart from that, only two-way contracts. And while don't get me wrong, Hayes played very well for their team, definitely exceeding expectations by many and pretty much the entire fan base, averaging about 8.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 1 block per game, and shooting a team high 83% from the field during that time frame. Only 5 games so far, but definitely playing well for their team, showing good chemistry with Luka Doncic and playing well on both ends of the court. So again, not mad about that and actually very happy about it. But in regard to their center depth, it's not been too good and still remains not too good. After the Anthony Davis trade for Luka, they then tried to make another trade for Mark Williams, and while I like the idea of it, it obviously fell through and that did not happen. So then they turned in a different direction, waiving Christian Wood, who is hurt and likely would not make it back this season, and then signing Alex Len, an 11-year NBA veteran with plenty of center experience. So from that standpoint, it wasn't a terrible idea by Rob Pelinka. I get what he tried to do and still probably is trying to do with him, but up until this point has not played well for their team. Only 2 games so far, and do gotta keep that in mind here. Made his team debut and looked pretty awful. Actually played 22 minutes in his team debut and that really shocked me. Not playing that well defensively, obviously not knowing their playbook or really their scheme on defense or offense, and again, gotta keep that in mind here too, but he didn't play well. And then during his second game with their team against Charlotte, once again didn't play that well. Maybe not as bad compared to his team debut, but did make a big impact. Didn't score a point, only grabbed 1 rebound in 10 minutes, and simply didn't look that good out there for their team. And well, that might have been enough for JJ Redick, as during his third available game with their team against Portland last night, he did not see a single minute. Instead, that playing time went to Trey Jemison, a 2-way contract for their team and a guy that's been in and out of their rotation since joining their team, but he played last night and got the minutes over Alex Len. And with that in mind here, is that a telling of what's to come with Alex Len? Will he be replaced in their rotation permanently? Maybe replaced with a different option on their team? Whether that be elevating a 2-way contract, signing a different player, either to a 10-day contract or a standard contract, or maybe even waiving Alex Len? We'll talk about that and break down every option available to them. And well, to begin, I don't think they'll waive Alex Len. I mean, it would look pretty dumb for them to sign him about a week ago, then waive him 1 week later. I really doubt they go that route, and it would take something drastic for that to happen. Either him making a commotion about being benched if they go that route, which definitely is a possibility, or him suffering a season-ending injury, something like that, but I really doubt they waive him, and if they do, it would take up until the very last game or something like that for them to do that. But right now I really doubt it. I don't see them waiving him, and definitely not enough time with him to judge that amount and say to waive him yet, so I don't think they go that route and probably shouldn't go that route quite yet. But then in regard to replacing him, whether it be permanently or temporarily, there definitely is an argument for that, and one made by Trey Jemison last night. Like I mentioned, Jemison got the playing time last night, and with them both kind of filling that same big man kind of role, more of a bruiser down low around the rim, more of a rebounder, hopefully rim protector, although we haven't seen much of that from Alex Len yet, kind of that role rather than a more mobile switchable big, more of a rim runner and lob threat like a Christian Koloko. Jemison and Len kind of fill the same role and probably are viewed very similarly, so they definitely can't share the same rotation, either one or the other here, and again, Trey Jemison did get the nod last night. And with that, he actually played pretty well for their team, scoring 6 points to their team, did commit 2 fouls, and that's been the big problem with him, which we'll touch on in a bit here. In addition to that, grabbed 4 rebounds, 2 of which were offensive rebounds, held his ground around the rim well, and that was very important against a really big guy like Donovan Clingan. In fact, I think that was partly why Trey Jemison played last night, to kind of match the physicality and strength of Donovan Clingan. And if you watch the game, you'd often match the minutes that Donovan Clingan played on the court. When Hayes was off the court and Clingan was on the court, Trey Jemison likely was a sub in pretty quickly after that point, and he did fairly well in that role for them and in that matchup for them too, which might lead to more playing time for him against physically imposing bigs, and they definitely could use that. No, he can't stop a guy like Nikola Jokic. I know somebody's going to comment that, so just say no right now. But he can kind of match up with them better compared to a Jackson Hayes or Christian Koloko, and maybe better than Alex Len on top of that. So in that regard, what he did last night and overall the way he's played for their team, there is some upside with Trey Jemison and probably more minutes for him going forward. but he will be limited if he continues to foul the way that he does. I mean, in limited minutes it's not that big of a problem, but if you're asking the guy to play anything more than about 15 minutes, he probably will foul out. With their team thus far, the guy's been averaging about 9 fouls per 36 minutes, and that's a lot of fouls in a short amount of time. Not to mention the flagrant fouls, a technical foul along the way. The guy's very aggressive and I like that, but a little bit too aggressive at times and a little bit too physically imposing. So from that standpoint, is limited, not only in regard to fouls, but definitely matchup limited, so gotta factor that in with him too. But again, he may have overtaken Alex Len, whether that be temporarily or semi-permanently, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was a one-time matchup thing to simply evaluate a different option, but for one game at least, he did overtake Alex Len. And well, that would be one option for them, albeit not a permanent one, unless they would elevate him to a standard contract, which would first involve them waiving somebody, whether that be Cam Reddish, Shake Milton, whoever it might be. They would have to waive somebody first, then sign Trey Jemison to not only elevate him to their 15-man roster, but then make him postseason eligible as well. So until that happens, or if that would happen, he can't truly be a permanent option for their team, as they can't rely on him to be in the rotation come postseason. And well, with that being said, they will have to look at a different option if they don't go that route, then simply might want to evaluate a different option as well, which might not be a bad idea in my opinion. Whether you're talking about Christian Koloko, we've talked about him plenty, so I'll actually skip that one today. Or they could then waive somebody and sign a different option via a 10-day contract, which they could then eventually turn into a standard contract if that player would perform well. Yet another option to maybe overtake Alex Len or replace him, or simply give him more competition. And if they would go that route, there's an abundance of options, maybe not the best options, but you could go with a guy maybe like a Mo Bamba, currently on the free agent market. I kind of doubt they go that route. He's been available, and if they wanted him, they would have signed him. They could have taken him over Alex Len, so they probably don't go that route. Maybe a different option, could be a G League option, they've shown interest in that, and even within their own G League team, elevating Jordan Goodwin to a two-way contract, shuffling between different two-way contracts, primarily from the G League and from their own G League team. And if they would want to go the G League route, a guy that I mentioned a couple of times now and wouldn't be a terrible option for a 10-day contract, could be a guy like Jamarian Sharp. Again, I've talked about him, so I'll briefly go through it. Is 7'5", does have lob threat ability, rim protection ability, averaging about 5 blocks per 36 minutes at the G League level, only about 8 points per game, but not really a scoring threat, not what they're looking for and not what they get from him, but again is a lob threat, fairly good vertical athlete for that height anyways, and doesn't really have to jump much to catch a lob. So between the rim protection, the lob threat ability, and the rebounding ability as well, a fairly good rebounder, might not be a bad option for a 10-day contract. That's only one example though. You could point to a different G League option or currently on the open market, but apart from that, I think they're waiting for the buyout market. That's why they have not made another move yet, despite them being able to. Again, waiving somebody or waiving two players and then replacing them. I think they're waiting for the buyout market. They have no reason not to. Obviously, no one's ever guaranteed to be bought out, but they're waiting up until that final moment, which does happen to be March 1st. That happens to be the playoff eligibility deadline, meaning guys that are waived by another team, they have to be waived by that point in order to sign with a different team and still be playoff eligible. So maybe a guy like Chris Boucher, definitely a long shot, but he might be a buyout candidate, is under an expiring contract, is 32 years old, and currently on a rebuilding team with Toronto. So maybe he could get bought out. I'd love that option for them. Maybe isn't the true center that you're looking for, but could give them more center depth, and power forward center hybrid depth, could play at both. Is a good 3-point shooter, a solid rim protector, a switchable defender, and overall a versatile power forward center hybrid. So I definitely would be interested if he would get bought out. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't find very likely, but obviously would be great. I've talked about Larry Nance, but he actually got hurt, so he likely won't get bought out, or even if he would, not really a true option even if he would get bought out. And after that point, the only center option left I could maybe see getting bought out would be Marvin Bagley III, getting traded to Memphis and has yet to play for their team, working his way back from an injury but is very close to being healthy. And with talks about him maybe not being in the rotation or not really a part of their team going forward, he might end up on the buyout market. Maybe not the best option, and obviously I'd take a guy like Chris Boucher over him. Maybe even would still take either Trey Jemison or Christian Koloko, but wouldn't be a terrible option simply for competition, and If he would get waived, he might even be willing to sign a 10-day contract, and especially with a center needy team like the Lakers, so that wouldn't be a bad option, simply to evaluate him and give their center rotation more competition. I'd be open to it, even with a guy like Marvin Bagley. Definitely a bust up until this point, a number 2 overall draft pick back in 2018 if I remember correctly, and although hasn't played that great, does have some untapped potential yet, is a good scoring threat, that's his primary strength, can be a 3-level scoring option at times, knocking down the occasional 3-point shot, with a fairly good mid-range shot and a good touch around the rim. Definitely is a good lob threat, that would be a big strength with him. Probably a better lob threat than anybody on their team not named Jackson Hayes, so that would be a pro with him. And then on top of that, a good rebounder. Can play at both center or power forward, rebound well, be a good lob threat, a good scoring threat, although not the best defender, but wouldn't be a terrible option and somebody maybe worth taking a look at if he would hit the buyout market. But with that being said, again, the buyout market's never a guarantee. It's simply an option for them and one they're waiting for because they have nothing left to lose to not wait for it. Again, the playoff eligibility deadline being March 1st, so they likely will wait until that point. But if they don't get any luck through the buyout market, they'll likely waive somebody and then either elevate a 2-way contract, whether that be Trey Jemison or Christian Coloco, maybe sign a 10-day contract in the meantime, could be a G League player like Jamarian Sharp, or somebody from their own G League team, and they do have the ability to do that. But again, to reiterate, no, I don't find it likely they waive Alex Len. I think it's pretty likely he gets replaced in the rotation, whether that be by Trey Jemison, maybe Christian Coloco if he gets another look, or maybe somebody they sign down the road. I think that's fairly likely, and he likely won't be a part of the rotation for much longer, and definitely not an every game member of the rotation. But with that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about their center rotation and what they should do with Alex Len within it? Should they replace him temporarily, permanently, waive him, keep him, or what should they do with him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.